Friends, at the outset, I must compliment DSA for organizing this discussion, which is extremely important. University of Hyderabad, after JNU, is known for its intellectual vibrancy. I worked here for 25 years. We had perhaps any number of seminars, and the students union and also the other association used to be extremely active, very vibrant. But as things changed, I don't know how many of you recall that some time back when the students association wanted to organize a seminar, like a discussion after Rohit Vemla's big tragedy, that they wanted me to speak on future of Indian democracy. And since I worked here, I was a dean, I was head of the department, I was in charge vice chancellor for some time. So I never thought there will be any objection for my coming and talking on future of Indian democracy. But as I was entering the campus, the small gate was closed. So my son was driving. He asked what happened. That guard said, sir, I understand that one Professor Haragopal is coming. Shopping complex is completely closed. There is a big police force in the main gate, and the university doesn't want this lecture. I just couldn't believe for a minute that I would be prevented from coming to the University of Hyderabad and talk to my own students. Then when I came here, of course, since my son is working here, he said, no, I have a class, I have to go. And the person didn't recognize me because they have this, contract system. So I know otherwise many class 4 employees, but he didn't recognize me, therefore I came in. The police was waiting at the main gate. And there are a number of students waiting here, and as I started speaking, there is you don't need any further evidence about understanding future of Indian democracy, because students can't organize a meeting and a teacher, their own teacher, can't come and speak. As I started, then registrar and public relation officer came, and then they said, sir, we are not allowing any meeting in Rohit Vemla venue. I said, what is happening to university? I worked here for such a long time. So I started arguing with the registrar. Then the registrar said, sir, particularly this spot, because it's very sensitive spot, so we can organize this meeting tomorrow in any hall, wherever you want, either in the Ambedkar Auditorium or whichever hall you want. But university took a decision that this particular venue, Rohit Vemla's venue, is very sensitive and all that. Then I said, will you allow the meeting tomorrow? He said, yes, we will definitely allow. Then students didn't listen. Students said, no, you people cheat, and tomorrow again you will put police and all that. Then registrar said, no, see, once we promise, this meeting can be held in Ambedkar Auditorium. Then students said, sir, you wait, and they accompanied registrar and got the formal order from registrar. Then they said, sir, you can go, tomorrow we'll have a meeting. By the next day it appeared in the newspaper. So there is a huge crowd, but a very huge number of students came next day, because they saw in the press, and this went like a wildfire. What I am trying to say is that universities are places where all sorts of debates should come. All political viewpoints should be debated, because this is a place of learning. I do not know how many post-dinner meetings have addressed in JNU. Whenever I went to Delhi, the JNU students used to organize a meeting. That is what is the purpose of university. While we learn in the classroom, we also learn outside the classroom. In fact, in JNU, hardly they learn anything much from the classroom, but in the nights, in the shopping complex and in different places, you find students at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock debating, on different issues that affect the society. So once I went to JNU to give grants as a member of University Grants Commission. So the Vice Chancellor was telling that he was narrating us, because we went there. It was a 10-member team to give 8 plan grants. So Vice Chancellor was narrating once a thief was caught in JNU. And దొంగను పట్టుకున్నప్పుడు this JNU student started దొంగతనం ఎందుకు జరుగుతుంది అంటే అతను దొంగను అక్కడ పట్టుకొని ఇస్ అ స్మాల్ థెఫ్ట్ హీ మస్ట్ హ్యావ్ కమిటెడ్ అక్కడ కూర్చోబెట్టి దే స్టార్టెడ్ డిబేటింగ్ దొంగతనం ఎట్లా ఆరిజిన్ అయింది, ఎక్కడి నుంచో దొంగతనం, చరిత్రలో దాని ఆరిజిన్ ఏమిటి, ప్రాపర్టీ వచ్చిన తర్వాతనే దొంగతనం అయింది, ప్రైవేట్ ప్రాపర్టీ ఎట్లా వచ్చింది. దే స్టార్టెడ్ డిబేటింగ్. సో ఫ్రమ్ 4-5 hours దే వర్ డిబేటింగ్. అప్పుడు దొంగ చెప్పాట, అయ్యా ఎంతసేపు కూర్చోబెడతారు, నన్ను పోలీస్ హ్యాండ్ ఓవర్ చేయండి, ఈ యువర్ డిబేట్ ఐ కాంట్ నో లాంగర్ పుట్ ఇన్. సో ఇన్ అదర్ వర్డ్స్, every incident provokes a debate. Theft is very important thing. And so last time when Rahul Gandhi came, he wanted to go to Usman University, and Usman University banned Rahul Gandhi going to and addressing the meeting. I wrote an article in Andhra Jyoti that how can you prevent Rahul Gandhi or anybody for that matter to come to university and address. And when I was in the Kakatiya University, I was there for a decade. I used to be students union advisor. I was very young also. So we used to invite all viewpoints from RSS to RSU. And every extreme left persons came. Once RSS chief, those days it was Yuvraj. So I sent somebody, asked him whether he would come and address our students. Of course, RSU was they were the students union. RSU people started arguing, sir, why would invite RSU? So I said, why don't you listen to him? What is wrong in listening to him? So you can listen to the other point of view. But that time he said he was very busy, some other time he would come. But once we invited an Anand Margi. This Anand Margi fellows thing, it's a typically Manuvadi Brahminical group which thinks that only few people in the world are intelligent, only they should rule the world and not everybody. Everybody is not endowed with critical abilities and all that. There are only few intelligent people in the world. Power should be in their hands. Our students were so angry that they started shooting questions, and I was presiding. So this Anandi Margi said, sir, please save me, sir. See, I am not able to, they are embarrassing me. I said, look, you represent a point of view. Why don't you answer? You have a faith. With all respect, we invited you. You answer the question, because without debate, how can Anand Margi spread? Anyway, now Anand Margi almost disappeared. But what I am saying is that it's always important for a university, because this is the time that you learn, you debate, you know the different viewpoints, the world views, and then form your own opinions, you form your own views, you form your own convictions, and that works throughout the life. So therefore university is a place, and now there is an issue faced by and there is a lot of debate going on all over the country, that whether this economically backward is the real intention of the constitution. As our friend said, that was it originally conceived? Why the Indian constitution that has said economically, socially and educationally backward, why they have not used the term economic variable? In fact, a Marxist would argue economic criteria is a critical criteria. Any Marxist would understand material base of the society is very important, the material factor. But very interestingly, those who believe in the very traditional religious, they are arguing, for the class, and the leftists are arguing for the caste. It's a very, a strange thing that is happening, but that's what Indian society is all about. The Indian society is such a complex society that class as an exclusive category, perhaps is not adequate to understand, to comprehend the reality, the unfolding reality, because our social formation is completely different. Historically, if you read Manu, and you would be shocked that any philosopher would ever write this type of thing, that saying that people should not have access to education. Entire women, including forward caste women, were completely prevented from having access to education, to learning, to even alphabet. That's why Baba Sahib Ambedkar, when he wrote Revolution and Counter-Revolution, in fact, he writes extensively about upper caste women and how they suffered. So, in other words, his concern, and in fact, he resigned from the cabinet for the land, right to property, right to land for women. And many people do not remember even upper caste women should be grateful. At least there was somebody, who argued that women should have a share in the property. And when the bill passed in the parliament, sent to Rajendra Prasad, he returned the bill. He returned the bill saying that no, he would not agree for the right to property for women. Then Baba Sahib Ambedkar pleaded with Nehru that no, we'll send it second time, because Constitution says that if the Parliament passes the second time and sends to President has no discretion. He has to pass it. He has to grant, sanction, or he has to sign. But Nehru said that this is just young democracy. Confrontation with President of India in the very beginning may not set a good precedent, and therefore better we drop it for some time. And Baba Sahib was very unhappy, and he resigned from the cabinet. For whom he resigned? Dalits hardly have any property. He resigned right to property for women. Women of this country do not remember that. Feminist women in this country should be grateful, because there was somebody right in the beginning of independence argued for right to property for women. So therefore what I am saying is that the entire argument that Baba Sahib said, how forward caste women suffer. When husband dies, how she has to shave off her head, how she should eat only one meal all through her life. Now, in fact, he writes with lot of concern and compassion for forward caste woman, because he thinks that a forward caste woman is almost a Dalit. 3 days there is an untouchability, because my own mother used to sit, and we are not supposed to touch our mother. She is not supposed to come. She used to sleep in the cattle shed. మా ఇంట్లో ఉండే పశువుల అక్కడ మా అమ్మ పడుకునేది 3 రోజులు when there was menstruation. So they also, even now, some of the families, conservative families, observe it. So what you notice is that the women, the Manu said, women should, should be treated, as an almost, untouchable, not access learning, and this type of 3 days, untouchability for her, and all this was there. Now recently, there is a circulation by these reactionary, the conservative groups, and one of the things, there is a booklet. In the booklet, they say that if a husband beats wife, what should she do? Bharta bharnu korte em cheyali. You know what is the answer? Wife should believe that whatever sins she committed in the previous life, husband, by punishing her, liberating her from the sin, and therefore she should be grateful to husband. అంటే ఏంటి? భర్త భార్యను కొడితే భార్య తాను పోయిన జన్మలో చేసిన పాప విముక్తి కొరకని భర్త తను శిక్షించి తన పాప విముక్తి చేస్తుంది కాబట్టి ఆమె భర్తకు రుణపడి ఉండాలి. కెన్ యూ ఇమాజిన్ 21st century somebody writing this and circulating? There are some women, a large number of girls should have come to this debate. But this is the debate that's going on outside. And therefore, this entire criterion of, affirmative action See, it has its own historical origins. When people are denied education for thousands of years, no access, treated as a subhumans, treated as subhuman for centuries, and then you realize that if this is the situation, that again only during the freedom struggle, although Buddha was one of the first rebels, but Buddhism, which is a child of Indian thought, what Nehru writes in his Discovery of India, that Buddhism has gone to Japan, and Japan is one of the most developed countries. It has gone to China, it has witnessed a revolution, it has gone to different parts of the world. But the place where Buddhism was born is completely approved. That's what Baba Sahib argues. That Brahminism was able to completely defeat Buddhism, and so therefore there is a possibility that even if the Dalits perform a revolution in this country, there may be counter-revolution. Literally today we are passing through counter-revolution. What Baba Sahib has predicted, anticipated, feared, I think that's what is happening now. Now this is one thing. So if people are denied property, decent income, even proper dress, proper housing, proper food, they were denied all these things, including education. Alphabet was discovered for such a long time, but even in the modern times, people do not have access to education, and large number of people continue to be illiterate. My own driver is illiterate. He doesn't know how to read and write. I can't imagine his generation being illiterate. He came as a child labor, he was working as a contractor, he never thought of educating him, and he can't read and write. Even now, we are trying, but he already has a skill, and therefore he gets some decent income, and therefore he thinks his life is done. Now this factor, those who are arguing for the economic backwardness as a criterion for affirmative action should know that people were denied access to education and learning for centuries. Whereas even assuming there are poor Brahmins or poor upper caste people, they always had access to learning and education. This is one historical fact. This historical fact is very important because if you do not understand history and the way history denied and discriminated the people, if you do not understand history, you can never correct the history or historical distortion. And therefore, one thing we have to keep in mind is that completely we have denied education to a large section of people in this country. Number one. Two, we have also denied the people the right to property, and completely there was hardly any property. They were not supposed to own the property. So therefore there is no property. There is nothing like, you have denied dignity, human dignity, because you have treated them, humiliated them, and the way you treated, they stay outside, they are not, treated like human beings. And the type of practices, I don't want to recount, but the type of practices, and if you read SC/ST Atrocities Prevention Act, please read it. And there are 27, atrocities, the SC/ST Atrocities Prevention Act lists the type of punishment even today. See, there is, there is a People's Media channel, I get, People's Media, and they only Dalit cases. Even now before coming, Dalits are humiliated. Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, Rajasthan, where the Congress party is supposed, Chhattisgarh, where the revolutionary movement going on, in all places. Even today, the humiliation that you inflict on the human beings. You don't treat people with dignity. That's why Baba Sahib said, dignity and self-respect. You respect yourself, then only others respect. They have denied us that respect for centuries. But now we should regain our own self-respect. So we should have our own self-respect. That's why he calls self-respect. Respecting one's own self and dignity. We should never compromise on our dignity. Because we were denied this dignity and self-respect for centuries. Human dignity, which as human beings we are entitled. Animals are respected. Stones are respected, trees are respected, but human beings are not respected. And I think, that's one thing that we have to remember. We were humiliated, we were denied dignity and self-respect, we were denied access to learning, we were denied the property right, we were denied the decent income, we were denied food, clothing, no type of clothes they were wearing was just loins cloth, small hut. And see, these are historical realities. If for centuries human beings are denied dignity, self-respect, and the property, income, and decent life, then that humiliation or that the what we have suffered for centuries, there is an accumulated suffering. There is an accumulated suffering. There is also an accumulated anger, obviously, because how we have been treated for centuries. And Baba Sahib Ambedkar, that's why he became a Buddhist, because Buddha questioned the karma, dharma, God. Buddha questioned God. And Buddha said, God is a non-question. Dukkha is the cause of the dukkha, is the society, is the structure of society. It's not, the dukkha is because of karma, janma, punarjanma. No, he said, no, these are not responsible. Karma is external. If somebody says that, why you are suffering, and if somebody says that you are suffering because of your previous life, what should I do? They say that in this life you observe dharma, then in next life, you will get a better life. That means cause is in the previous life, solution in next life. What should I do in this life? You have nothing, you have no control over your life. So therefore you can't do anything in this life. What should you do? You obey dharma. What is dharma? Manu dharma. Whatever Manu has written or whatever, the Hindutva has said that that's what we have to observe, we have to know those things. I think these questions, that's why Buddha said dharma, karma and all this is all, they are not there. The suffering is because of the nature of the society. Suffering and overcoming suffering within our own hands. But Buddhism has been defeated. Then the Bhakti movement was there. Bhakti movement said that you have direct access to God, remove this middleman, the Brahmin and these people, you remove them, and then have direct access to the God. So therefore, Meera, loved God, direct, there is no mediator. So therefore, the whole Bhakti movement has removed at least a middleman. But then, either Bhakti movement or Buddhism or the movements of tribal movements and whatever revolts were there, see, these revolts did not make a qualitative difference to our society. This is the tragedy of this, historically tragedy. For centuries we were denied. And therefore, as we entered the modern era, when the capitalism came in the Western world, and the impact of liberal values was there on our society, and gradually our society was becoming conscious. And then Sahu Maharaj, anti-Brahmin movement of Tamil Nadu, right? Some of the Mysore kings. This reservation is not totally new. Reservation was extended even much before. Baroda Maharaja has sent Baba Sahib abroad, and he said that you go, but you come back, and see, Baba Sahib came back, and of course then he completed 2 PhDs in London School of Economics and Columbia University. In economics he did PhD, in education he worked with John Davy. He had complete modern exposure. With that exposure, with that liberal, democracy, he came back. And he came back and saw, he was continuously asking us, why are we like this? Are we not human beings? And so this one fundamental question he asked. And therefore, although he was a student of economics and education, he has gone into the scriptures, Vedas, Upanishad. Read Ambedkar. Krishna, Rama, whole, Hindu scriptures he studied. And then he wanted to understand why the Dalits have been denied and what is the cause. And then scriptures, he said that these scriptures are the base of these practices, and therefore scriptures should be questioned. And therefore, during the freedom struggle, while the Gandhians and the Congress party was engaged in the anti-colonial struggle, Baba Sahib was asking this question: if we get independence, if we get freedom, what is the position of Dalit? Will he be a free citizen? Will he be a dignified citizen? Will he be an equal citizen? These are the questions he was asking Gandhi. Yes, you are fighting for freedom. But freedom for whom? Freedom for what? Does that freedom include? And Gandhi, of course, he started talking about the untouchables, He started talking, and of course he said Harijan, and his wife, one of the magazines he used to run was Harijan. And then he went to the, to the Dalit localities, he did sometimes scavenging, all that he used to do. Yes, and Gandhi in his own way tried to solve the problem, and then he said that Gandhi questioned, if you can prove me that untouchability is there in any of the scriptures, he said that I will cease to be Hindu. I mean, this was Gandhian way. But Baba Sahib said, no, I mean, the basic question is, I am asking in free India, what is my position? And therefore, Baba Sahib went into the whole causation, and he said, the major enemy, the cause, is the caste system. And therefore, he said, the annihilation of the caste. When Todak Mandal, see, when they organized, Baba Sahib written this paper, Annihilation of the Caste. They have not allowed him. They read the paper and they said, no, Baba Sahib cannot be allowed to come to this meeting at all. This paper, the upper caste, they were very unhappy with that, paper, Annihilation of the Caste. But Baba Sahib, not only annihilation of the untouchability, it is the annihilation of the caste itself. So that was his struggle. He had a philosophical understanding, he had a historical understanding, he has a spiritual understanding. His understanding was, among the modern political thinkers, the way Baba Sahib has written is, I think, no other person can, compare. I personally feel, although we have studied him when we were students, but when you read his work on fascism, when you read his work on the caste, when you read his work on the democracy, when you read work on the revolution and counter-revolution, he has written on fascism, very interestingly. And very interestingly, he writes that Hitler's philosopher was one Nietzsche. Nietzsche was inspired by Manu. Nietzsche said there is no parallel to Manu. One of the best philosophers of the world is Manu. Who said Nietzsche? Nietzsche was who inspired Hitler. And the Hindutva groups went to, Mussolini. And, have drawn the inspiration and came back. And then, they have gone back to, Nietzsche and gone back. Manu, Nietzsche to Hitler to Hindutva groups, and again they're back. So this is the, circle that, he writes in his work on fascism. So therefore, Baba Sahib Ambedkar, when he was arguing that for the equality, equal opportunity, then he was raising the consciousness and he was continuously organizing movements, because freedom does not mean only British go away. Freedom is something that you must experience in your life, and then only you can call yourself a free country. You can't have untouchability and then say India is a free country. Freedom for whom? So therefore, this historical fact of denial of dignity and self-respect and the entire accumulated disadvantage, this is very important. Now, therefore, when you call social backwardness is backwardness which is accumulated over centuries, and we have still that hangover on the present generation. So this is one thing. Second thing that Baba Sahib argued is that education was denied. Education was denied for centuries. Therefore, social backwardness and educational backwardness. Now, if you bring economic variable, his argument is that even assuming a Dalit has a bit of property, assuming that he has a bit of property, and a Brahmin doesn't have property, let's argue that way. A Brahmin doesn't have property, Dalit has, let's say, some property. But Brahmin does not suffer the humiliation. Brahmin does not suffer from a lack of education because he has access to education. Brahmin does not suffer from lack of dignity and self-respect. And many times I am giving my own example. I come from a different social background. But in my village, I studied in my village. I also belonged to a lower middle class. We didn't have much of property. I didn't have chappals till I completed my my high school education. I had only 2 dresses. Sometimes we used to go without the breakfast. All this we have also experienced. But having born in a particular community, I had several advantages. Supposing I go to a shop, or I go to see a drama, the Bhagavatam, in those days used to be there. You go anywhere, you are called Pantalu. they would say that పెద్ద పంతులు కొడుకు. Nobody would call me ever, Emra. Nobody would call me. Nobody in my village would call me Emra. Haragopal, nobody would say. But my 3 classmates, Dalit classmates, Ramaya, Papaya and Narsaya, Emra Narsaya, Emra Mahadigoda. See, why I am referring to this is, once you address a person and the way you treat, what happens? It completely erodes our dignity. It also hits our self-confidence. ఆత్మవిశ్వాసం అనేది ఎక్కడి నుంచి వస్తుంది? సమాజం మనకు ఆ విశ్వాసాన్ని ఇస్తుంది. సమాజం మనం ఎట్లా గౌరవిస్తుంది, ఎట్లా చూస్తునే దాన్ని బట్టి సెల్ఫ్ కాన్ఫిడెన్స్ వస్తుంది.